The Vikings make even more moves with a very intriguing depth signing that could become a secret weapon to add to this busy free agency. And we break down the secret element to all these big signings with Kwesi Adofo-Mensah being at the forefront. We're going to be breaking down all of that in this episode of Vikings Digest. First, make sure to hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon so you don't miss any and all Vikings updates as we get closer and closer to the NFL draft. And with that, let's hop into the first topic of the day, which is Rondale Moore has been signed. So yesterday it was announced that the Vikings agreed to terms with wide receiver Rondale Moore, who is a very speedy slot receiver that could be a secret weapon for the Minnesota Vikings this season. If you guys aren't familiar with him, I know you see him there in a Falcons jersey, but he didn't really play for the Falcons as he missed all of 2024, his lone season with Atlanta, because of a knee injury suffered during a joint practice with Miami last August. The Falcons acquired Moore by trading quarterback Desmond Ridder to the Cardinals in March 2024. Moore joined Arizona in 2021 as a second-round pick, 49th overall, out of Purdue, where he quickly made an impact. And he recorded 4 catches for 68 yards on 5 targets at Tennessee in Week 1, then exploded with 7 catches for 114 yards, including a 77-yard touchdown from Kyler Murray in Week 2 when the Cardinals topped our Minnesota Vikings 34-33. Rondale Moore had not been a predominant piece of the Arizona Cardinals offense when he was there. And obviously he wasn't with the Falcons because he wasn't able to play. But when he was with Arizona, he was a very solid and very reliable wide receiver 3 who could torch teams with his speed. When looking at his total stats, he totaled 135 receptions for 1,201 yards and 3 touchdowns on 182 target. 51 of Moore's receptions have resulted in first downs and touchdowns. Listed at 5'7", his speed has also been implemented in the run game. He rushed 52 times for 249 yards and 1 score. Now, this is a player that the Vikings could really use as a Swiss Army knife type of player. We know that they're bolstering down the run game. We went out, we got Jordan Mason, we re-signed Aaron Jones. Now we bring in Rondale Moore that we can use on jet sweeps. Jalen Nailor, he's a solid wide receiver 3 in the slot, but Rondale Moore is so fast. It is unbelievable how fast this guy is. Will he be as fast as he was before his injury and his history of injuries? Who knows? He might have lost a step here and there, but he still gives us a very big advantage in the speed category because he has such explosiveness, his acceleration. We can run jet sweeps. We can run wildcats. We can use him in the run game and as a receiving back as a result of it because he's primarily a wide receiver with running back speed. So that out of the passing game for J.J. McCarthy, absolutely useful. Then you look at how he fits in this Minnesota offense, where if you have TJ Hawkinson as that big body coming up through the middle or underneath, or where Jordan Addison's coming over top, Justin Jefferson's just streaking down the sideline, then you have Rondale Moore as not just a checkdown receiver. He's a speedy checkdown receiver who could turn a drag route into from 5 yards into 25, maybe even more for a touchdown. We know he has big play capability with a lot of his catches coming on touchdown catches or first downs. So they're going to utilize him in big key moments, and that'll be huge for this Vikings offense and huge for J.J. McCarthy. This was a player that when I saw that he was available on the free agent market, I was texting Kirk and I was saying, I would love it if Minnesota was able to get him. And when I saw that he was meeting with the Vikings, I thought, okay, this is another situation where some free agents that we wanted in this offseason, Kwesi's almost like listening to the grapevine saying, hey, fans want these guys, let's go out and get them. And they've been doing that. Rondale Moore is one that is very appealing. I think of a lot of the wide receiver market out there. He was a free agent that a lot of teams, they were kind of passing on because of his injury history, because he wasn't a predominant piece of the Arizona Cardinals offense. But he was always a sneaky piece of that offense that teams didn't really account for. They were always accounting for the big name guys, AJ Green, DeAndre Hopkins, Larry Fitzgerald, now Marvin Harrison Jr., that they were forgetting about someone who can be very speedy and burn them underneath. And that was what Rondale Moore was. He was always that sneaky touchdown player that if you weren't taking him on your parlay picks, it was understandable. But he was one of those anytime touchdown scorers that always paid really big because he didn't always score. But when he did, it was big in key situations and they were big play touchdowns. So usually if you took him on the over for his yards and touchdown, that ticket was paying out big. So there was a lot of things with Rondale Moore that brings a lot of upside for fantasy value as well too. He's going to be a boomer bust player, but when he's booming, he's going to be booming. We saw what Jalen Nailor was able to do when Jordan Addison was out of the game and as well as filling in for that wide receiver 3. Was he a reliable fantasy start every single week? No, but there were some matchups where if Minnesota was going against a really good pass defense, Jalen Nailor was not going to get as much attention as Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, or Justin Jefferson. So that opened the door for him to have a really good ceiling, or a really reliable floor, as I should say, as far as a week-to-week basis based on those matchups. So I really like the idea of them bringing in Rondale Moore here, where he can bring a lot of attention away from their big guys and as well not get as much attention because the defense they're focused on those big guys. So this is one that I'm really excited about, but I'm loving to hear what you guys have to say about this signing. Would love to hear what you guys have to say down in the comments. Are you excited? Are you nervous because of the injury history? Or do you think this brings an opportunity for JJ McCarthy to have an even better situation to come into with offensive weapons? Let us know down in the comments below, but that's going to take us into our second topic of the day, which is Minnesota is the place to be. And this is from an article that Sports Illustrated had coming out, where it was in each of the 3 years since the NFL Players Association started collecting and releasing player satisfaction report cards for all 32 teams, the Minnesota Vikings have ranked right at the very top. They were the first in overall grade in 2023 and have come in second behind only the Miami Dolphins in the last two editions. From ownership and front office to head coach, facilities, nutrition, training staff, treatment of families, and beyond, there's no question the Vikings run a top-notch organization. Some fans around the league may downplay the importance of those report cards, but while they don't directly lead to on-field success, they do matter. Not only is treating people the right way always a good thing, it can have a real impact on the decision players make in free agency. And we have heard nothing but amazing things about the culture that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, Kevin O'Connell, it's no coincidence really too that in those 3 years, that's the 3 years that those guys have been here. So ever since these report cards started, Minnesota's ranked near the top because we brought in a new GM, a new coach that established this amazing culture that we have where players want to come here. Miami being the other team that we're up there with. I know Miami hasn't translated to wins as much as it has for Minnesota, but you look at the free agency signings that they've been able to get in Miami in the past few seasons and the guys they've been able to draft as well. Location is everything. They got the warm weather. They got no state tax as well. So there was a lot of incentives for guys to go there from a financial standpoint and a weather standpoint, but also as far as a team facility standpoint, guys weren't just signing there for no reason or just signing there for the money or just for the state tax. They had their reasons to sign there. Mike McDaniel was a very exciting coach too for people wanting to play with. So this is something where, yes, does it directly lead to on-field success? Not entirely, but it still does have an impact because you still have locker room morale, still have organizational morale. You look at what Washington has even been like. Look at the turnaround they had where before Dan Quinn, Jaden Daniels, Cliff Kingsbury, and all those guys got there, nobody wanted to go there. You know who is a big factor of that? Dan Snyder, obviously. But with that, when they had this culture shift, you look at all these players now. Yes, the players that have been balling are a big part of that. But the culture and ownership and management change that they had in Washington is also why players now suddenly want to go there. And we're seeing this with Minnesota, and two of our biggest signings of this offseason spoke out directly about this. The first of which Javon Hargrave, who's a two-time Pro Bowler, saying that they got a reputation around in the league, how they run their organization. That was a big thing for me too, seeing everything, seeing the reports on how they take care of players. I think that's a big thing in the NFL. Obviously, he's coming off of an injury as well, so our facilities being top-notch in the league. Kirk Cousins, his Achilles injury and his recovery there, spoke very highly of our athletic and training staff there. JJ McCarthy with his meniscus, there's been a lot of praise there as far as what they've been able to do. TJ Hawkinson with his ACL rehab, he was very, very vocal before he started last season about how amazing this team's medical staff is and their rehab, their physio programs. Everything is just state-of-the-art and top-notch for the Minnesota Vikings players and this culture, and as far as treating their players the right way. Another player who was talking about joining Minnesota as well was Jonathan Allen, saying that my agent and my financial advisor are both based out of Minneapolis, so I'm usually up there 2-3 times a year. And going into this offseason, I definitely wanted to take my family into consideration. I'd probably say it was between 20 and 50% of my decision. And when you look at year in and year out how they're graded, when your wife and your family is all able to have a great life and be included and be involved in so many things with the community, definitely makes that decision a lot easier. So Minnesota, we were able to get so many free agency signings, not just this year, but also last year. We brought in Andrew Van Ginkel. We brought in Jonathan Grenard. We have Harrison Smith there. Obviously, that's another one too. Harrison Smith. Look at how long Harrison Smith has stayed in Minnesota, taken pay cuts. And then you have all these free agency signings we've taken on top of that for just to stay within this organization. Part of that is because Harry was drafted by us and he wants to bring us a Super Bowl so badly and fulfill what Paul Krause was unable to do, to be one of that other legendary 22. We should retire it in the rafters after he retires, absolutely. But with this, Minnesota has a culture. Look at also at winning percentage. In the Super Bowl era, we're in the top 5 for winning percentage when the only team without a Super Bowl. Now, with these culture grades coming out as well, it's going to attract even better players. That's the other thing too, is that in these big free agencies in the past, or in the modern era of football, as far as not modern era, but I should say in the 21st century of football, since the 2000s hit, Minnesota, as far as free agents, Brett Favre, Randy Moss coming back to Minnesota, Adrian Peterson was a draft pick as well, but there wasn't a lot of big free agency signings that Minnesota has been able to make in the past. Patrick Peterson was a big one. There's some other ones here, Xavier Woods too, but none that are majorly flashy. And yes, the ones that we've made this past offseason, have they been huge flashy ones like a Devontae Adams or a Jamar Chase or Cooper Kupp or anything like that? No. But look at the impact that these guys have on the teams that they were coming from. We were able to take superstars, not marquee guys that are going to be prime time, that are going to warrant these massive contracts. These are guys that were MVPs of their units, of their defensive units, of their offensive units. Brought in Pro Bowl offensive linemen, brought in Pro Bowl defensive tackles, brought in Pro Bowl cornerbacks, brought in Super Bowl champions as well. And all because of the culture that Kwesi Adofo-Mensah and Kevin O'Connell have instilled in this Minnesota Vikings team for the new era. Ever since that Rick Spielman was pushed out, Mike Zimmer was pushed out, and the Wilf family has done a phenomenal job at reestablishing and resetting this culture with a rebuild that didn't take very long to come to fruition. We thought we would be bad for a few more seasons than we were, but we've been able to kind of really right this ship and get back to winning ways quickly without having too big of a drop off. And as a Vikings fan, obviously we can't be happier for it. But what do you guys think of all of this? How big of a factor do you guys think that the team culture and our grading on team culture and the organization gradings as well, how big of an impact do you think that it has had in getting these offseason additions to the Vikings this season and last season as well? Let us know down in the comments below how you guys are feeling and how excited are you for the draft and that we are committed to JJ McCarthy as our #1 quarterback. Let us know down in the comments below, but that's going to do it for this episode of Vikings Digest. I've been your host, Griffin. Take care.